Greetings, Facebook Live. We're about to get it popping for the True Love Movement Hour every Saturday live on WBOK 12:30 a.m. This is our first show of 2008.
19.
Oh, Lord. 2019. 19. It's been one of those kinds of weeks and trying to remember. You know how that is, but I'm totally present, so.
Give thanks. All right. Good evening and welcome to the True Love Movement Hour. It's your host, Brother Shaq.
And Mama Fire.
And we would like to welcome everyone here this lovely January 5th, Saturday, 2019, here in the city of New Orleans. Happy 2019 to our True Love Movement Hour audience and our listeners, WBOK listeners, and of course our Facebook Live viewers. What's happening, Mama Fire? It's a whole new year, huh?
New year. Calendar year, new Gregorian calendar year.
Right.
It's a beautiful day. It was a beautiful day today. I'm thankful to get some sun and do a little self-care.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thankful for you, Brother Shay.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Right on.
I'm thankful for, just today, being here at WBOK 12:30 a.m., we have a good show planned today, so good day. What about you, Brother Shaq?
Man, it's out of sight for me, Queen. I'm loving the weather. I like that it's not
gorgeous.
It's not too cold, but I like that it's nice and breezy out there.
It's sunny.
It was sunny.
The sun's going down.
Sunny.
Golden
We had
time
a
of
little bit
day.
of everything going on out there, so I like that. I like that a whole lot. I like that I was able to do like the brother Jay Prince said. I was able to let all the sleep leave my body this morning. I was able to sleep until that happened. So
that's nice.
that's a great way to start the day, and I'm grateful for you, Mama Fire.
We just all in love today. I love it.
I love everything now.
That's true. That's true. We especially gushy today.
Right on. And we are grateful to you all for tuning in to the True Love Movement Hour here on WBOK 12:30 and Real Talk for Real Times. Kicking this 2019 off. There's so many things happening in New Orleans and elsewhere, and so we're honored that you've chosen to continue to ride with us. Again, 5 years strong, going on 6 and counting, here at WBOK 12:30 AM, Real Talk for Real Times. You can join us on the World Wide Web at www.wbok1230m.com. The WBOK 1230M app that's available on the Google Play and in the App Store, as well as your AM dial at 12:30 a.m. And of course our Facebook Live family, Mama Fi. Shout out to our Facebook Live family, and you can simply like the True Love Movement Facebook page and join us here live in the studio for the True Love Movement Hour, as well as check the archives for previous True Love Movement Hour shows. I think we're going back to maybe 2016 on the True Love Movement page. So if you're new to the True Love Movement Hour and you want to get a sense of what we do and how we do what we do, as Mama Fine describes it, as political education for the Black nation, of course wrapped in Black mental wellness. You can check that out on the True Love Movement page on Facebook. But we got a jam-packed hour, Mama Fine. There was no meme, there was no advertisement, there was no marketing, there was no sharing, there was nothing out there on the in social media land about promoting today's show. With very timely and timeless topic, Mama Fire, particularly for True Love Movement. But we're going to dig right into it because it is a fast hour. We think that our people need, our voice to add to the texture of this very inevitable conversation, Mama Fire.
Yeah, I agree.
So what's happening?
Well, even though we don't have TV and we don't have a way to really watch the R. Kelly docuseries that is happening, everything's in an uproar, where people can share their thoughts about it. They're in an uproar about it, and it seems to be very divisive. Not so much on my timeline or my social media, but I've been hearing people share that they're divided, and people are saying one thing and other people are saying other things. And just to kind of talk about surviving sexual abuse or surviving sexual violation and what that means for us as a people. And in the realm of what we can know about the docuseries Surviving R. Kelly.
That's right, Mama
Yeah,
Fi.
yeah.
As you pointed out, we haven't seen it, so we don't really know what's in it, but you did locate a very good article this morning when we were talking about the show and preparing for the show.
I did.
Just so we have some familiar reference points.
Yeah, I
And-
probably need to try to pull that up. So talk a little bit.
Well, and so, so family, yes, we have seen, which first of all, I think, hopefully everyone, what we have found is that everyone is very energized, suddenly about this particular topic, which we know is not at all a new topic and not a new discussion. We also know the allure of celebrity as it relates to our people, and how when celebrity is part of a story that resonates with so many people, of course it gets our folks talking about it. But I would say that in the midst of all of the emotional barrage and those kinds of things, and the opinions and even some of the more analytical critiques of the documentary itself, I do think it's wise for us all to take it down just a little bit, because we're trying to reason with some things and wrestle with some things that many of us haven't done publicly, number one, and we also haven't done authentically, number two. And then number three, a lot of it, because it does resonate with so many of us, is because so many of us have been impacted by it, whether directly or indirectly. There's a lot of passion around the particular, the thoughts and the experiences of this. And then there's a whole lot of historical context that I haven't really seen addressed at all. And we're trying to do much of this as far as our relationship to it, Mama Fi. Much of it is happening by way, via social media. So it's digital discussions at that, without all the nuances of actual face-to-face, where you can feel someone's energy and that. So there's that. And then we're trying to do it all in English, which is a very narrow language and isn't sophisticated enough to convey all that we could possibly feel about this or anything else, because it touches on and rubs up against a very tender place in all of us as people of color, black people specifically here in America. And because of all of those things, it adds a lot of texture to the discussion, and it's very, very complex. There's a lot of opinion in this thing, and I would never invalidate anyone's opinion, but I think one of the most important things for all of us to consider about opinions is that opinions are, very much, as a good comrade of mine, Sister Milta Vega Cordonia talks about, opinions are just like eyebrows. We've all got at least two of them. And so the idea in the American mainstream of trying to impose your will or conquer somebody else into submission is essentially that, I have an opinion that is superior to your opinion, and I'm going to force you to agree with me. And at best, we can agree to disagree, and we're not going to learn anything from each other, because we're not really interested in listening or learning or uplifting and validating the humanity of one another or any kind of compassion, but rather trying to impose or force our supposed will or supposed opinion on others, Mama Fi. And I say supposed because the thoughts that we think about this family, if we're really honest with ourselves, these are not even our own thoughts. Most of us, we've been socialized to think certain ways about certain things, but it's not very deeply interrogated just in our own selves. And that's the part of it that we don't even consider. We really do operate as though the thoughts that we're thinking are our own thoughts that are not influenced by anything that we've experienced, seen, thought, or heard already about this subject, similar subjects, the people involved, and so forth. So that's why we're saying the idea of the assertion of opinion is fine, but it isn't an interrogated, investigated analysis. And so, Mama Fi, if you would open us up with, something that could give us a peek into a possibility of such.
Yeah, I mean, I think opinions, you're a very factual historic brother. I think opinions are important, but I think we should know that they're opinions, and it's okay to have one, and it's okay for someone else to have one too, in their realm of experience, from their perspective, in their experiences. I think this is the right time for a docuseries like this to come out. And like, we haven't watched it, but reading the article is from Vulture. It's online. It's called Vulture.
That's interesting too. Vulture.
Vulture. And it's the one that really caught our attention this morning as we were trying to read up on it. We were actually trying to watch it, but if you don't have cable or don't have any type of television streaming thing, it was very difficult to find out how to watch it. But this Vulture article is written by Angelica Jade Bastian, and I think the article talks about some serious things, and it's her opinion, in some ways, and some of it is just really, really off, but some of it's right on too. I think it's my opinion that the divine feminine is making a rise right now. It's a cosmic shift that's happening, and so it's important for all of this nasty, dirty, funky stuff to be coming out about the love and protection and the honor of the black feminine, the black women, black girls. And so all kind of stuff is going to be coming out about what has been happening and what is happening and what always has happened as long as we've been in this country to black women and girls. I think, and let me not say that. Let me say as long as we've been colonized here in this country, right, America. And it's important for us to realize that this is nothing new. It's nothing new, but it is extremely taboo and nobody speaks about it. So I think it's important for us to talk about it, even if it's on a kind of a sensational docuseries, because that's what the sister who wrote this article was saying. It's super sensationalized, right? It's like they're asking these very poignant and questions to these people who have been traumatized. And they're re-traumatizing, right? So I don't know who's asking the questions. It'd have been smart to have a counselor come up with the questions and be there to ask the questions. And it not to be filmed. Everything doesn't have to be filmed, You can get information, but it doesn't have to be filmed. So they're saying it was sensational because they're asking these questions and they're watching the women just crumble on the screen, which is, could have been audio. We could have done it, how they do reenactments of things. They, and so that was, the article was talking about that, how they, it's very sensational where they're seeing the re-traumatization of these women on screen, and they're also not asking deep enough questions, like really, really deep questions about us as a people. Y'all, this is something that is epidemic-like and rampant in our community, period. And I mean toward black women and black girls, toward black boys and black men.
That's right.
Black women are doing this to black women and girls.
That's right.
It is something that is truly happening, and I know firsthand from being a survivor that it will destroy self-esteem and self-worth, and it will send you on a path of complete and total destruction without intervention and without help for this thing. And so we are here, True Love Movement is here to kind of ground the conversation, to let people know, yes, this is happening, and yes, we are fired up about it, and yes, it's sick and perverted, but let's really get real. Did it happen to you? Did it happen to you? And I'm not saying, like, did it happen to you? I'm saying, look back into your past and see if it happened to you. Because a lot of the time, we sweep stuff under the rug. People sweep it for us. Right? Mamas and grandmamas and granddaddies and uncles and all these things, they sweep it under the rug over and over and over again, generationally. And we forget, we stuff it down with food, we drink it down with alcohol, we take pills to forget. But to me, the biggest question is, did it happen to you
Right.
in your past? And is it happening right now on your watch?
That's right.
You know? And if it is, that's to me what is good about bringing all of this to light, is that you can bring it to light on a micro level. And you can bring it to light we will bring it to light on a macro level.
That's right. It's an opportunity, Mama Fi. And I appreciate you, disclosing right out of the gate as a survivor. And of course, this is
Everybody knows that. If you know Mama Fire, I am not ashamed to say it. I wrote it in my book. I talk about it in my music. And it's part of my mission. It's part of the mission is to not be ashamed to speak about this and bring to light these things so it can be healed.
That's right.
Yeah.
And in doing such, again, appreciating that, because you, as you said, you have told your own story. And that's the important part of it, that telling your own story and us telling our own stories about what we've experienced is a step, an effort in the way of reclaiming our humanity, on a very individual level. And I'm saying that is because that is this depraved behavior that is talked about, obviously, within the article. I haven't seen a documentary, but presumably so. It's from the documentary is not an invention of the black community. That there is a fantasy, there is a historical fantasy for our people. Because if we ever listen to our people, Mama Fire, our people have the loudest cry on the planet for justice. I mean, our people have been crying out for justice to be served and done since our people have been entangled in this American society with this dominant culture. But there's no justice coming for our people. You know what I'm saying? Like we've tried to put it into religion and put it in God's hands, and we've tried to do all kinds of things in hope and pray some more. But the justice for the wrongdoers to us has not shown itself. At least it hasn't been revealed to us in ways that we are satisfied that people are, in fact, paying for their crimes against our humanity. And I'm saying that because that's part of where, through the course of this kind of a dialogue around a subject as tender as this, we see it most pronounced. Because what we're seeing is that there is a demonizing or villainization of black men in general as a result of this. Because there are so many stories and instances and times where black men have violated black women, black girls, black boys throughout our history here in America. So we've got that, and that's known. It's in families. It touches people in a real way because they have experience with that, and that's who their abusers were. That's who their aggressors were.
That's right. It's so epidemic, and the truth of the matter is, no white man ever physically or sexually harmed me in this lifetime right now. But where does the sickness come from? Like, where does the perversion come from that is so embedded? What is it?
Internalized.
Well, you're going to say internalized, but I'm saying inundated. But I know you say
inundated. We're inundated
in
with
our
culture.
In our community, in our in our families.
Right.
I remember when I told about what had happened to me, my family completely threw me away.
Oh, yeah.
They threw me away. They told me I was lying, and because that's what they do. I'm not the only one that has that story.
Definitely.
It's a sad story. Sad story.
Definitely.
I'm thankful for my father. I'm thankful for my stepmom. I'm thankful for my mother. I'm thankful for my core group of people who loved me. But everybody else, cousins and uncles and aunts, and to this day, they have not helped, still believe it's a lie.
Right.
Even though my life proved that it wasn't.
Right.
The trajectory that I was sent on because of it proved that it wasn't. And I don't want to get too far away from what you were saying, Brother Shay. It's because it comes, where does the sickness and perversion and secrecy and incest and children are coming out and saying, I found out my father is my uncle, and
Right.
you know, this hush hush thing that happens to black families.
Right, right. And so thank you for that, Mama Five, because your personal experience, your personal lived experience is more valid than any other kind of historical, interrogation or theoretical view of this kind of thing. And so that is welcomed, and please jump in whenever you feel the spirit. And I won't be long with it. I just think that the one thing that I would like our people who are watching and our people who are listening to just today in this moment begin to grapple with intentionally, because I think we've been grappling with it for hundreds of years now, is that notion that black people, no one has ever been held accountable for what they have done to the collective of those of us who have come to be called black. We have never had that experience in our collective memory. There is no one who has come and done something to those who have violated us. We have never had that experience. It is but a fleeting fantasy for us. And so to the degree that we have not had that collective experience, and we know in our stomachs, we know in our hearts that it is due us, we are grasping at straws in the attempt to talk the language of holding people accountable. And the reason why we struggle to actually ever hold anyone accountable inside of our community is because we don't know what it is to actually do that process, because we have the power dynamic in America has never been positioned for those of us who have come to be called black to have the power to, against the will and anything else of other people, hold them to accountable, put their feet to the fire, as it said, for what they have done. We do not have that collective memory because we do not have that collective experience, though we have a yearning for it. And so what we do in place of that is we don't confront that reality, Mama. We don't confront that historical truth. Instead, we try to grab whatever we think we can as a substitute for that. So we will vilify the victim and say it's your fault. Then we may try to vilify the abuser and say it's your fault. And we will quibble about those things and about the rightness and the wrongness of the act and the behavior and the multi-generational phenomena of it all. But
Right, vilifying the parents as
vilify
well.
the parents, but
Yeah.
we won't quite go back to how did we come to be like this. And my suspicion is, and it's an observation more than a suspicion, is that when we come face to face with that, because we are unable to really bring anybody to justice on it, we don't want to go there. We don't want to be reminded that we don't have within us, or rather we don't have outside of us, what it would take to bring to task the people who created this sickness within us. Because the history will tell us how the slave master forced black men to have sex with black women, black children,
Black girls,
other men, black girls, with other white men. It was forced. We were forced to do this deviant behavior on the plantation. And then people talk about the black community as though the black community created pedophilia, or the black community
Come on, Brother Shay.
invented this deviant behavior. It did not. The black community, who created the black community? And
Come
it
on.
wasn't the black community. The black community is the remnants of what was the slave population. This is not an immigrant group that came to this country on their free will looking for a better way. This is we are those that didn't bow down. We are those that they didn't kill. I mean, we descend from those people. That is historical truth. And so for us not to be able to make the connection between what those experiences were then and those are the ones that bore us here today, that's the cognitive dissonance that brings us back to trying to jump on the people we think that we can reach and want to hold morality over them and remove whatever little remnants of humanity they have, because we're saying they should have known better, they should not have done this, and rightfully so, but without even saying, but what happened to them?
Yeah.
And what did they experience? Because none of this condones the behavior, but we want to confront everyone in everything except those people who set this whole thing in motion, which was not and were not those of us who have come to be called black.
Yeah, I mean, I think this docuseries is called Surviving R. Kelly, and you know, that has so many dynamics to it, right?
Right.
Like, R. Kelly is a man, and when you say surviving, I think surviving Hurricane Katrina, surviving the Holocaust, surviving, and what it could have been named was surviving slavery.
Definitely.
Surviving slavery, or surviving sexual assault, or surviving, you know, and I'm not saying that R. Kelly is right and should
Not
be,
at all.
you know, we are not saying at all. He is sick. He is a sick man,
Proven.
and he has never gotten help. You know, this article says that he was a victim of sexual assault himself, and that's what the hell it does.
Yep.
That's what it does. And it can do one of many things. You can turn into an abuser without any intervention or help, and that's the reason why it's important to talk about it and take it out of secrecy, because in secrecy, you never get help, you never get support from it, and you can turn perverted. You know, Brother Shaq, I think about the trajectory my life went. I did some demeaning things, some
Right.
hurtful things to myself. It went internal with me,
Right.
you know, and it became a sexual perversion in that, you know, sex became everything to me. It
Right.
wasn't even about the pursuit of love. I had it confused that love and sex were the same thing. And so I'm out there getting, Brother Jack, I don't know how many people I slept with.
Right.
You know, and because of how I was taught about sex and forced in these kind of
Introduced to
things,
sex,
introduced to it, and because of that childhood sexual trauma, I had other sexual traumas that happened to me because of the ramifications of the sexual trauma that I experienced as a child.
That's
so that
right.
means I end up being raped as well.
Right.
I end up, you know, being touched inappropriately, or being in positions to be treated like, you know, be treated completely
Not
less
human.
than. Yeah,
Not human.
dehumanized. To also dehumanize myself, dehumanize my
Right.
womb. And so this has so many ramifications that if we could just stick on this thing,
Right.
you know, if we could just, as a people, get a good understanding of this and what it does, how it has impacted us,
That's right.
we could move the needle on wellness
That's
for
right.
us. On one thing, sexual violation. If we took time to really heal that part of our community, I'm talking from the victims and also the perpetrators, y'all, because
yes.
mainly, if we really understand it, the perpetrators are also victims. And listen, I'm not playing a violin for R. Kelly at all. I've been stopped listening to R. Kelly music. He a creep, you know. How did he get that way?
That's right.
And so listen, this is part of the article, important part. The woman, I'm not sure what is her, how she identifies as far as race is concerned, but she says, in order to properly grapple with R. Kelly, one must honestly interrogate the dynamics of toxic black masculinity, the complicity of the black community itself that allowed his brutality to thrive, cycles of abuse, and our cultural obsession with stardom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So, Surviving R. Kelly picks up intriguing threads that tease at these interlocking themes, but it proves to be an uneven venue for engaging with them in any meaningful way.
Right.
Okay? And, you know, it's important for us to understand who we are, understand our pathology, right? Really get down to the pathology of the quote-unquote black community.
Right.
You know, and I take offense at saying, you know, this is, and there are other parts of it that she said that this is all kind of like our fault. as a black community.
Absolutely.
How does one see a child be hurt and not do anything to support that child? Because back in slavery times, you couldn't couldn't do anything without getting whipped, murdered, hung, whatever. That's
right.
how.
That's right.
That's how that happens.
Mama Fire, you just brought up about, and you didn't identify. You just said you, in general, but during slavery was the ground floor for not listening to. At that time, it was enslaved African females or slave women. But that was the ground floor and foundation for an entire culture that does not listen to the words or value the minds or the bodies or the sanctity of the humanity
that's right.
of what we have now come to call black women or black girls. There is a history, it is a part of the cultural DNA of the forming and foundation of America, that the voice of the black woman is muted, and black girls are obviously also muted. And part of the benefit of us being not people, not human beings, but rather chattel on those plantations was that we didn't have any say over our circumstances or ourselves or our body, no agency. This is the introduction of us, those of us who have come to be called black. This is the introduction to us in this society, and our inability or unwillingness rather to really examine the origins of those things keep us arguing about the black community being complicit in the same way, Mama Fire, as we would blame the victim of a sexual assault. For example, we would say, well, what were you wearing?
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
We would
drinking.
We would not deal with who did something to you.
Right.
We would deal with you with the presumption that this is essentially your fault. And the idea of blaming the victim is as American as apple pie.
Come on,
because when you can successfully or effectively convince the victim that it is their fault, no one ever has to be culpable for what happened. And when you have an entire culture or a whole people where the culture is, or the political reality is, what comes out of your mouth is completely meaningless, and that is reinforced and reaffirmed in every aspect of people, areas that they deal with in the society, both internally and then externally. It's very easy to continue that dehumanization, much the same way, Mama Fire, as you described this morning. And I would like for you to just shift it there very quickly to talk about what appears to be apathy on the part of many of those who have survived previous traumas or previous abuse. Because I think for those of us who have not had that experience, we really don't understand psychologically how one can become frozen, and how that what appears to be freezing up only exacerbates or it makes future abuse or continued abuse that much more prevalent and easy to occur.
Yes. So the statistics say 1 in 3 women are reported victims of sexual abuse, right? And so I would suspect that it's much more for black women, because like you say all the time, Brother Shaq, when the white folks got a cold, we got the flu.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying? So this is been strategically planted in our families for generations and generations and generations, right? And so when we think about adverse childhood experiences, from 0 to 7, we're talking about a very serious time for children. Developmentally, this is the time where we are being programmed. This is where we are trying to understand socialization. We're trying to understand who we are in the midst of our families, what families are, what what is appropriate, what is inappropriate. This is the part 0 to 7. And when that happens to someone at that tender age, they are absorbing and internalizing sex, love, protection, safety. They're trying to understand. We're talking about children here, and this has been my experience and a lot of other people's experience. I know because I listen to stories all the time. I listen to people's personal stories all the time. It's been 0 to 7 or 0 to 14. There are childhood sexual adverse experiences that happen, and what it does to you, there is a mechanism that happens when you are molested or you are touched by an adult or touched by an older sibling or older cousin or a person in the family, an uncle. You internalize these things, and you actualize that your no means nothing. Your no, you saying stop, means nothing. That sex is what's supposed to happen, right? At this time. Just like any other child between 0 and 7, you are finding out what is supposed to happen. Right. And so if it happens to you, then, and even if you don't like it, even if you say no, even if you like it, and it feels wrong because they tell you don't tell someone, or they tell you if you say something you're gonna get in trouble, or if you do say something and they say, oh girl, shut up, the adult's responses, you are being programmed that this is like sex is a taboo subject, or sex is something we don't talk about. If you're feeling hurt, or if you're been hurt, you better shut up. You better not talk about it. And so as you move on in life, and there's situations that become sexually, like you become in sexual perverted situations, you are a part of it because that's just how it went for you as a child. It's how it goes. And really, it's like you're drawn to it. You have the experience and you're drawn to it. And then if there's ever situations where you have to say no, you've already internalized your no's mean nothing. Right. Your no's mean nothing. And so it is actually statistically proved that people who are sexually violated in childhood are violated numerous times in their lives because there is something that freezes you and makes you scared, makes you go back. Right? It re-stimulates that trauma, makes you go back to your child self, into scariness, into disassociation, into these things. These things have happened to me, and have happened to many people. I want to stop saying women, because this is not just a black women and girls thing.
Not at all.
This is not.
Not at all.
Okay, we want to shine a light on this, and it's important to shine a light on that particular population, but it also happens to black men and boys. It happens. Period. It happens to, yes. And so I have to believe that the person who hurt me was also a victim, Brother Jack, also a victim. It was very sick, and the sickness is a seed that was planted, and without any help or intervention can grow wild. And that's what it is in our community. That's really what's happening. And so for these young women in this docuseries, I don't even know if I want to watch it. I probably will, maybe with you, and maybe do some self-care and some spiritual work afterwards, and maybe through it, and try to keep myself from, and I've learned ways to take care of myself to where because I don't have to hear real stories all the time. Right. But the young women in these things sound like they were re-stimulated by this project. And listen, I do believe survivors should make projects, not Dreamhampton. Now, is this person a survivor? I would love to ask him. What was the reason? What was the draw into doing this? Was it because you knew everybody was going to watch it? or was it really to get justice and support for these women?
Right.
Because from what I'm hearing, it re-stimulated some of that trauma for these young women, and that's why it's important for survivors to tell their own stories in the way that they
In their
feel
own terms, yeah.
on terms, in the way they feel safe, in a way they feel protected.
Right.
Because this is nothing to shy. You know, some people say, man, it's just whatever. Let that go. It's not that big a deal.
Right.
And oh, that happened in the past and whatever. But let me tell you something. If someone is hurting someone and sexually violating someone, most likely they're doing it to more than one person.
Right.
Okay? So what that means, that's how it spreads. It has a serious impact on self-esteem and trajectory toward goals. Right? It has a huge impact on what you think you can do. And I think is the root cause for a lot of our issues as a community.
Definitely.
You know? And so, yeah.
Thank you for that, Mama Fire. I wanted to jump in right there when you talked about something that if you ever spend any time with us on the True Love Movement Hour or in the office or just doing any kind of work, something that I'll say and something I've said that's not simply applicable to sexual trauma, but really anything for our people in particular, but really for all people. But I'm not interested in all people, and everybody who knows me knows that. But I say that we, black people, will only, and I want you to listen, we will only confront a thing to the extent that we feel capable in resolving it. We will only confront a thing to the extent that we feel capable in resolving it. The history and multi-generational sexual trauma, sexual abuse, sexual violations that occur within our experience, within our families, within our communities, is such a subject
Yes.
that we do not feel confident that we can resolve, and therefore we do not confront it. Now, what we do, however, is pick soft targets within it to try to focus and zero in on them. For example, oftentimes the victims.
Yeah.
We want to shape the victim's behavior. Let's zero in on what they were wearing, what they were drinking, who they were with. Let's do that because we feel that we can affect that. We do not touch the person or the perpetrators or the pathology around that because we don't feel confident that we're able to really confront that. And again, I opened up talking about our cry and desire for justice as black people, how we have never experienced that. That has not been a part of our historical reality in America. Black women particularly know nobody's coming to save them, nobody's going to protect them, nobody's going to listen to them. But that didn't start in the black community. That began on the plantation. See, what we calling normative behavior now was formed somewhere else. It wasn't formed inside of the black community, but there again, to confront that, you have to actually face that. And
Yes.
see, when you face it and you realize, well, who can I hold accountable? The slave master's dead. Black people don't have no power anyway. I can't call the police on nobody. I can't complain. So you feel played again. And see, the re-stimulation of trauma also happens on that end when we're brought face to face with something that we cannot confront. It only reminds us that we cannot do anything about it. So we do what the victim of the abuse does. We don't talk about it because ain't nobody gonna listen. But every now and then something will bubble up and we feel cathartic, but we wanna talk about it. But because we cannot deal with who did it, it stops. It goes away. You know what I'm saying?
We can deal with who did it.
Oh yeah, we
I
can.
think this we should use this as a catalyst. This
I
is
agree.
pulling up some stank and some ugliness that we need to look at, and you need to look at it in you first.
Definitely.
Look at it in you. Have you been a victim, and have you victimized?
Right.
Have
That's
you
right.
ever victimized? That's important. That's important for everyone in the black community. You know, look at yourself, get help, to heal it. Because as a people, we can't go and say, you did this to us. You know, we were surviving slavery because, we were surviving sexual assault because of you planted this seed in us.
Right.
But as far as us as a community, where's justice going to come from, Brother Shaq?
It's just us.
So that means we can begin to talk about this and really, show the perpetrators.
That's right.
Really say, because there are community perpetrators right here in the New Orleans community.
That's right.
Right? And the survivors sometimes cannot say it.
That's right.
Because maybe you go back to adverse childhood experiences and you are frozen and your voice is stopped and you are scared. But for people who know you are complicit if you don't call them out, right? In our own communities, we can't call the police. What the police gonna do? What the police always do? What DCFS do? They say, okay, well, take the person out of the house, right? Take the quote unquote perpetrator out of the house, and we're gonna investigate this. And what happens? The perpetrator is able to come back to the house.
That's right.
Nobody went to jail. And maybe jail is not the right place for them.
That's right.
We as a people need to decide what's going to happen to perpetrators. What's going to happen. And then if people are being violated, they need to get help right away. It doesn't need to happen when they already started drinking, they already started being promiscuous, they already started hurting themselves or other people. Then you get help. You get help immediately when you find out what has happened.
That's right.
So I think you say black people will only confront a thing to the extent that we can resolve it. We can resolve this.
I agree.
I have to believe it. And as a survivor, I've become empowered and understand that my own power. And I know that we can resolve this.
We can definitely resolve the family. And as we're moving into the end of the show, we didn't get directly to solutions. There's so many other aspects of this that we didn't really get a chance to bring into it. For example, the poverty part of it and how, poverty, even in the example you were just giving now, when there's an abuser in the home and how they're living there because they may have nowhere else to live and the family took them in because you can't leave family
they
out,
may be the breadwinner.
They may be the breadwinner. So there are all these other elements in there that that also exacerbate the
Poverty
situation.
and oppression are serious. Poverty and oppression have done a number on our self-esteem as well, a number on our minds and our spirits as well. So yes, Brother Shaq.
And what we can do in the way of solutions are things that we've been talking about for over 5 years here just on the True Love Movement Hour, but in real life and off the radio and off of social media and actually doing it is simply that black folks can feel safe around you. See, that's a very powerful thing that when one of your people see you, they know that they're safe because you're there.
You would never do anything to hurt them.
That level of personal responsibility and integrity is within us if we're willing to not be cowards about it. See, I want to say this because I think this is a part of the conversation that's missing because of the way we've been dehumanized and devalued, internally now, but externally before. There's something in us that really likes the idea that people are a little bit alarmed or put off or kind of, scared around us. We like that feeling. It plays into that white man in our mind, that fantasy. It's a very sick fantasy. We'd rather do that than make sure that they knew that they were protected. We'll go out for all kinds of causes that we call righteous, but because we don't value ourselves before this, we can't value our people when they really need us. That's how come the true love and the self-love, the true love movement has been dealing with and talking about and rooted in is so important. It's not this superficial, flighty foolishness. True love yourself is for real because this is what you really need to be able to do in order to affect our people properly. Because the people who don't love themselves are the ones who are wreaking all this havoc on our people. Because see, when you're clear and you love yourself, you're not going to hurt yourself and nobody who's like you, but you can't feel connected to people that you don't relate to. If you don't understand that, that's what's dangerous, and that opens up the opportunity to violate somebody, whether we're talking about sexually or otherwise, because you don't feel no connection to them.
That's right.
They're not like you. They're not human like you. So we can decide to value ourselves, and therefore anybody who despises black people, I urge you, just learn our story. Learn the history of black people here in America. And if you're a black person, just learning that, I suspect, will bring about some compassion. Part of the reason why you can have the venom that you have is because you don't know what we've experienced. If you knew what we experienced, you wouldn't be a part of adding to that oppression, especially not being black, because nobody benefits from that, at least not black folk.
Yeah. And listen, as a solution, survivors, stand up. Survivors, heal yourself so that you can heal others. Heal yourself, get the help that you need so that you can heal others. There's something called a wounded healer. And this is someone who is able to identify specifically what people have gone through.
Right.
That's powerful. It's powerful. When I'm sitting with a sister who has experienced sexual assault, a sexual violation, abuse, especially in childhood, I can tell her my story, and we could sit together in it, and we could say, you know what, sis, I have been healed, sister. I am well, and so can you be. You
right
can
on.
be well, and part of that is telling your story. A lot of men, women, this is the nasty skeletons in the closet. This is all the nastiness that no one wants to. Everybody's got on a mask. Everybody's got on the fakeness. Nobody really wants to deal with that. That was the hardest thing to deal with once I realized I needed help.
That's right.
The hardest thing. How was I going to heal from that? That happened to me when I was 6 years old. And probably before that. Before I could even remember. How could I heal from that? And through self-love, real true self-love, through touching base with my higher power, with my higher self, touching base with God, really supported me through the healing of, myself in those places that were damaged, and be able to heal others and be able to help people heal themselves, because that's really how it goes, and gave me and people say a new lease on life, but it gave me a rebirth.
That's
and
right.
another chance to live powerfully, to live abundantly in the understanding of my brilliance.
Right.
How wonderful. And now it helped me create True Love Movement that's going to make our people rise. But we got to get down to the nitty gritty. We got to get down to the depths of the healing that have to happen and stop being in denial about it. When can we talk about how black boys are being sexually violated and are becoming perpetrators? Can we really talk about that? Can we really get down with that and understanding that they are not the enemies, though, right? But they are sick and they need help, because if not, that's the only way we're going to stop this.
That's right.
And not even only black boys, black girls and women. A lot of the time I hear this from the sisters that I sit with, that they were violated by black women.
Definitely.
Who are also victims. What
Right.
do we do? The healing must begin now.
And so family, it has been a fast hour and a broad topic. Shout out to, all of our listeners on WBOK, our Facebook Live family. Mama Badarinwa had a great point. She was talking about the seasoning that happened even before they were brought to the plantations, where the rape happened and everybody was there to watch.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ventress Hunter, Shantice, Denise, Tracy Elizabeth,
Peace, my
Mama Charlitas,
sisters.
Mama Janice joined us, Purpose Brian. Let's see, I see Aresh Kali down there. I see Sean Bay, Shantae, Mama K. Sharif. I'm trying to get as many folk as I can. Natasha Wilson, Sister
Shout out to my
Ronika.
brothers.
Shout out to everybody who joined us here live and who will share this show and watch this show later. It'll be up on YouTube probably tomorrow, as well as the other shows that we've done with True Love Movement. And speaking of True Love Movement, if you would like your humanity back,
Come on.
visit www.truelovemovement.com, because that's what we do. We're in the rehumanization of our people. There's nothing that we're going to be able to do without it. We have watched and witnessed and experienced and observed in that documentary and in our lives what we are doing without it. So if you really don't want that and you really want to do something different, you do have the capacity to confront what has happened to you. There's nothing wrong with you, but something definitely has happened to us. And so if you would, again, visit us at www.truelovemovement.com or call the Love Line at 504-309-LOVE. So fast hour, stay tuned. We got the front porch hanging out for the new year, followed by DC Paul and the gang on Brother Shaq
And Mama Fire.
for the True Love Movement Hour. Wholeness. You Facebook Live is still rolling.
Yes. So So I'm gonna do some self-care. I'm gonna do some deep breathing. I'm gonna get that deep, deep, deep breathing that opens up my diaphragm and my lungs. Oh my gosh.
Who you are is great enough, for real.
Who you are is great enough. Who
Say
you
it
are is
loud.
great enough. When you are truly are who you are.
Right
Yes.
on.
And so I'm gonna go take care of myself so that I can take care of my children, and so I can take care of Brother Shay.
Yes.
And
Have to take care of Brother Shay.
and really reorient myself to myself and get shake it off, shake that load off, because it's difficult to talk about it, but it's so important. Love y'all.
Who you are is great enough. Let me take it out here.
You can't get it off?